In early summer after the spawn, the bass start to move out deep to offshore structure. In this week's In Depth, Stacy King takes us out with a jig and a crankbait to show us how to catch these bass. Also, Rick Clunn explains how he approaches these new super lakes that we've all heard so much about. But first, I'm going to show you how these new swim baits are super effective for catching big smallmouth bass. You know, a lot of people think that these swim baits are really just for clear water and they're just for springtime. But in reality, for me, this has been a bait that I've been using all season long and even in dirty water. The great thing about this over all other swim baits, especially the soft plastic ones, is that because it's got those flat sides, it's got that jointed body and it makes a lot of vibration and it helps the fish find it even in dirty waters. Golly, did he just scream it. Anytime you've got these fish that are roaming around on these flats, you need something you can cover a lot of water with. You know, these fish are feeding on big bait fish, so you need something that's imitating a big meal. That's why the king shad has become one of my favorite big smallmouth baits. I got him. Come up underneath it and got it. One thing that I really like to do for these smallmouth, and when I'm throwing crankbaits and things like this, is I like to switch the hooks to triple grip trebles. Those triple grips really hold these fish like this a lot better. But that's an awesome fish right there to start the day. Gotta get it right at the boat. It's not a big one, but that's a good fish still. So often like that, they're gonna come up and slap at this thing. And that's what I love about the king shad is, you know, that's not that big a fish, but it's a kind of bait that really appeals to every size. You know, that's not too big for a bass like this to eat, yet the great big ones come after it too. The whole key to this bait right here is the retrieve that you use. Now, I mean, you can fish this thing a lot of different ways, but when I'm targeting smallmouth, I know that they like erratic movements of their prey, or they can't stand it. This is the only swim bait that I know that I can fish real fast, and I can kind of jerk it and twitch it and stop and start, and that's what this bait does. Looks like a wounded bait fish, and they can't handle it. One of the great things that I like about this bait is how natural that it looks in the water. So color, obviously, is critical. And I base the color on the water clarity, the time of the year, and the forage in the body of water that I'm fishing. You know, if the water's a little bit dirtier, I want to use the solid painted colors, the brighter colors that are going to be more visible in those conditions. It's hard to beat the gizzard shad. It's almost got a pearl white belly, black back. It's just like most bait fish anywhere in the country. Tennessee shad's another good one, the rainbow trout. Any of those patterns that are solid colored, have a little bit of chartreuse on them, they're gonna be real visible if the water's got a stain to it. Now, as the water gets clear, that's where the color choice is even more critical. You know, the shad patterns, things like that, those are gonna really shine in those clear waters. One of my favorites is the bluegill pattern. It's great around the spawn. You know, when the bass are, you know, building nests and guarding their beds away from the bass, they can't pass that one up. It looks so natural. When they get a good look at it, you want it to look as natural as possible, and they'll come a long ways to bite these baits. One of the great things I like about this bait is how versatile it is through all the different times of the year. You know, early in the spring when the water's cold, one of the best ways to fish this is just with your rod tip high, just waking that bait right underneath the surface. I'll just reel it along with a slow, steady retrieve and stop it every now and then just for a split second and continue that retrieve. As the water warms up now and you start to get around the spawn, I like to speed up my retrieve a little bit, and if I can see an object out there like a bush or a stump or a rock or dock piling, I want to just reel it up to it and stop it. Maybe give it a little twitch, a little more action to the bait. And that's the great thing about it, is this is a lure I can reel at all speeds. Now, if the water's real clear, and especially when I'm fishing around smallmouths and big spotted bass, I'll reel it a little bit faster, and I'm gonna kind of jerk it and twitch it a little bit. I'm gonna try to make it move real erratically. And that's one of the neat things that I like about this bait over any I've ever fished before in this category, is that you can do that with it. I can reel it as fast as I want, I can still kind of twitch it and jerk it, and it almost works like a jerk bait, but yet it still has that profile of that shad. It seems to me that the more erratic that I can make it as the water gets warmer, the more bass I catch. Up next, Stacy King talks about fish that have got the post-spawn blues. If you want to be successful this time of year, listen closely to what Stacy's got to say as he goes in depth. The wind had a bowl in my line. I wasn't even sure it was a fish at first, but it was. Come in here. Not that big, but plenty mean. I'll tell you what, this is a perfect place right out here for structure fishing. This place stands out like a sore thumb on a map. I found this place by looking out there, and I saw this little high spot with just out on the middle of a flat off the side of the main river. And it's got deep water on both sides of it. It kind of comes to a tapering V. The V is upstream. The current's crashing right into that point. Even though there's not much actual water coming through the lake, they're not pulling much at the dam right now. There's a lot of wind current coming in. That's creating some current and putting these bait fish out on this point, and those fish are feeding upstream on that point there, waiting for a shad to come by for them to grab it. And I caught this one on a jig. He nailed it right there, so hopefully there's a bunch more of them in there. One of the old sayings is anytime you're fishing the bank, 90% of the fish are behind you. And I think in certain lakes and certain times of the year, that's true. In the summertime in your highland reservoirs, the majority of the fish are not going to be on the bank. They're going to be on offshore structure and out suspended chasing bait. That's just the way they live. And so that's why I like to fish summer structure. I just really enjoy it. And it's good in the fall and winter too. You know, bass like deep water cover when it's available to them. Deep water is cover to them, and any kind of a hump or a ledge or a drop off that has some sort of stumps or rocks or brush piles on it, that's going to be a key area. That's going to be a place where those bass relate to. It's going to be an ambush point where they ambush shad coming back. They'll move up on those flat tops of those points and feed on crawfish. And so in the summertime, if you'll study your electronics, your maps, find those places and learn to fish offshore, you're going to put a lot more bass in your boat. Got him. Oh, right back on that sweet spot again. He's a fighter. Come in here. That's just, I'll tell you what, it's just like a dinner table for him. You've got a big old hump out here with not much on top of it, just mud and sand and gravel. You've got about a 10-foot square area of rocks out there, and those fish will suspend off the sides of these things, and they move vertically up and down in the water column. And when they get hungry, they'll move right in on that place. It's just like you and I going to dinner, and they move in there and eat those crawdads, and every time a shad comes by, he's in trouble. What's so much fun to me about fishing offshore structure is that you can have a huge school of fish in a real small area. I mean, lots of them. You can catch a lot of bass in one little bitty area. And not only that, it's a numbers deal, but it's also a great way to catch big bass, and that's what I like to do. Look at this school of bait fish up here on top of this hump. I'm right on the side of the drop. It drops from 13 off to about 25, and I'm in 17. And I mean, talk about a veritable smorgasbord of bass food. There it is right there. There's jillions of shad in there. I mean, that's what these fish are feeding on, are those shad right there alongside this lip. Oh, there's one. Oh, baby. Come in here, baby. Easy now. Good fish, good fish. Boy, did she smack that DT-14. That's one of my favorite little crankbaits for doing this. Funny, I missed two just like her, just knocked slack in my line. They hit it so hard, and I had them on there long enough just to feel them wiggling. And this one's got every hook on the bait in her. Oh, yeah. Come on, baby. Boy, I love them like that. They are so mean and vicious. I bet there's a whole school of them out there. To be a good, accomplished offshore structure fisherman, you have to have quality electronics on your boat. You need a unit that has GPS mapping capability plus a quality LCR. Lots of pixels in there so you can see what's down under you and it'll show you exactly what it is. I like to have two of the same units on my boat, one on the console, one up front. The one back here is for when I'm idle around looking for my structure spots, and also my GPS. If I have some waypoints marked in, I'm looking there on my map. And then the front one, sometimes I'll run it on the same thing. I'll have it on the split screen up there so I can see the contour of the bottom below me, and then I'll see the depth also. So learn how to use those electronics properly, and it'll just help you so much in the summertime fishing. You know, I love to fish these highland reservoirs, and even some lowland reservoirs have a lot of structure. And this time of the year, you have to have good electronics and know how to use them.
When you're structure fishing, there's so many variables you got to keep track of. Whether there's any current or not, if it's sunny or cloudy, all these things can make a difference in how the fish are going to be positioned and what bait you need to use. Let's go back to Stacy and he'll show us how to get it done.
I'm getting ready to go down and fish one of the TVA lakes, and there's a few things I like to do for preparation before I go.
The first thing I like to do is map study. I'll take a topographical map and I'll study that thing and look for humps and drop-offs and structure. But the most important thing I like to do is I like to get on a computer and look up the entity that runs the lake, whether it be the Corps of Engineers or the TVA or a private. Find out who it is and look it up, and they'll have information on their website about flow rates and lake levels and what the conditions are at the time, and they'll also probably have a phone number you can call down there and get the same information. So it's really critical that I know those things before I get down there. It'll help me be successful on my trip. I found a high spot out in this bay on my map, and I'm gonna graph over it and see if I can find it. Now there's a good little piece of brush right there. I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna move on about 10 foot down, and then I'm gonna toss my buoy right there. I don't wanna drop it right on the brush pile because you get your line tangled up in it, or if you hook a fish, he'll get in it. So you wanna drop it out away from the brush pile, and that'll give you a free casting area right in there where I saw the brush. Now I'm gonna turn back and I'm gonna ease on down the ledge and look just a little bit more. I see some more bait there and another little piece of brush. It kind of has a little bend right there. That can be a real key little area where a hump like this had been. Now I'm coming around and I dropped off fairly deep right there again. I'm gonna turn back up on it. When I hit it this time, I'm gonna shut the motor down and I'm gonna get up and start fishing, and I'll fish back towards my buoy and where that brush pile was right there. There it is right there. I'm gonna turn her off and hop up.
Oh, that's a good one there. I mean, he bowed me up. Picked that big old worm up, threw it out there, and did that big sucker hit it. Come here, come on. Yeah, get in here. That's more like it. Look at the size of that toad. Whoa. Got her hooked good too. She hit that thing on the fall. They're just going down. I just felt think. She nailed it. I'm gonna let her go. Big old pretty thing. You know, we just moved to a different location right here, and that's about the second cast I've thrown. Grow up, big girl. Oh, another one. That's a good fish too. You know, that's great. That's really interesting. I fished this spot with a jig and another worm several times, and they quit biting. I'd caught 3 or 4 in each one of them, and I picked up that big worm, and first cast, bang, one bedded. It just goes to prove to you that you need to try a lot of different baits. Most of the really good structure fishermen I know have 4 or 5 techniques that they like to use out in a spot like this. They'll have a jig, a big worm, a crankbait, a spoon, and stuff like that. And they'll go through a scenario of fish trying each bait out there on that place, and you may catch them real strong on a crankbait for a while, but then you want to switch to one of the other baits and on, and it'll always pick you up a few more fish if you'll try different lures after you've caught a few on whatever it is you're throwing. Here's some of my favorite lures to use on deep structure. I like the DT series of crankbaits. Here's the DT10, DT14, DT16. I also throw a DD22 quite a bit. Love to fish those crankbaits. They're really productive. I like big worms. I use a 10-inch Berkeley power worm an awful lot of time. This blue fleck color is one of my favorite colors. Of course, the old jig worm is just a good standby. Catch lots and lots of fish on it. I like a lot of different kinds of jigs. I fish football head jigs, especially if I'm fishing rocks and gravel. I like the football head, and if I'm fishing around a lot of brush, I'll use a pointed head jig like this lacerite jig right here. Slow rolling the big spinner bait, hopping it up off the bottom can catch some of the biggest fish in the school. And then I love to use a spoon. I either use a Bass Pro Strata spoon or this Shorty's Hopkins spoon in gold is real effective. And you know, a lot of the guys have different lures that they like to use, but these are some of my favorites, and they seem to produce well for me. One hit my crankbait. He's not very big, but he's mad. He's a pretty good fish. Don't want to come to the boat very bad. He's hooked in the top of the head, that's why he's mad. Be still, be still. I know you're hurting, but I don't want you hurting me. Ah, gotcha. Didn't hurt you very bad at all. Pretty little bass. I think that fish was suspended because I hadn't wound it out 4 or 5 times, and bang, boy, he slammed it. This is a big one. I got a big one on there. Man, I can feel it. Boy, he is pulling. This is what we've been looking for right here. That's two casts in a row right out there in that one spot.
Oh, I got two of them on at once. Got two good ones on there. What's this? If I can get them up, man, they're strong. Look at them. Oh, one of them come off. The biggest one come off. Dadgum. Still got one of them. This is really a neat deal. I'd been throwing around on this hump out here quite a bit, and I let the wind kind of blow me up on top of it and threw back off into deep water. And man, I'm getting a bite every cast. Had two on there at that time. Nice bass. Let's get back out there and see if we can get two again. A little trick I learned a long time ago is if you've got a piece of offshore structure, a hump or a ledge or something like that that you've been catching some fish on, or maybe you think you should be catching some fish on, you fish it and you can't get a bite, instead of setting out in the deep water throwing up shallow, ease up on top of it and turn around and cast behind you. Cast out in the deep water and work that bait up that ledge. Sometimes that's, it's funny, but sometimes that's the way bass want it, coming up. Just experiment around with your retrieves and try up and down and up, any way you can, and some ways you'll get some more bites. Holy, that's a good one. That's a good one. Nailed that old spoon, boy. Look at the mouth on that dude. Oh, yes, I mouthed that old spoon. Ease her back. Boy, they hit that thing so hard. I mean, it whop when they hit it.
One of the first things I do when I take a spoon out of the pack, one of the first things I do is, you notice it does not come with a clip or a split ring at all. That's very important. You want to add an oversized split ring. If you don't put a split ring on there and you put a snap or tight directly, you'll have just unbelievable line twist. But that right there eliminates most of your line twist, and it gives that spoon still enough that when it flutters to the bottom, it looks like a dying, wounded bait fish.
Everyone's talking about these new super lakes, but you really need to approach them differently than you would a normal lake. That's the topic of this week's Art of Angling.
You know, in the timeline of bass fishing, and real unusual thing has kind of occurred in our fisheries over the last 15, 20 years. And that's these new lakes that I kind of refer to, don't really have a good name for, super lakes. They did not really exist when I started fishing 30 years ago. For the sake of some of you newcomers, I really need to go back into the timeline of bass fishing. So you really you need to understand where a lot of these ideals and techniques you read about came from. A lot of the way that anglers like myself and anglers that have been fishing for many years programmed themselves or taught themselves to fish was based on the lakes we had. So many of our techniques back then were designed to be able to put you on 15 to 20 to 30 to 40 bites a day. And that's really what I trained myself to do and became very good at. And so that really meant fishing smaller baits, fishing probably at a higher rate of speed, covering a lot more water to achieve that in a day's time. But when you go to these new lakes, like Lake Fork or like Clear Lake in California, where you're fishing for 5 quality fish, and I'm talking about 5-pound plus fish and even bigger, you have to now change those techniques. And these fish don't react the same way to lures and to presentations that those 2 to 4 pounders that I learned to catch for 30 years. You've got to now almost reverse that style. The sport has evolved where we don't have 15 fish limits, we have 5 fish limits. Young anglers who grew up with the 5 fish mentality are better at this than the older anglers because they're used to only fishing for 5 quality fish a day. And when you go to these lakes that have giant fish in it, and a lot of them, really now you have to change your technique. You've got to go from the smaller baits to the larger baits. You know, jump up from something this small that gets a lot of bites to something that won't get as many bites, a larger bait, but will get those bigger bites that you're looking for. It's especially true on these super lakes now that you have a big fish state of mind when you go fishing. And this is more of what I call nowadays fishermen have a 5 fish mentality. For me, I have to slow down. I've got to use bigger baits. You know, I got to be more deliberate. I got to, again, have a 5 fish mentality instead of a 20 fish mentality so I can fish at the right pace. So these are all mental adjustments you have to make now if you want to go from catching a limit of little ones to go to these super lakes and catch some giant fish.
The Bass Pros, brought to you by Full-size Tundra, the truck that's changing it all. Mercury, #1 on the water. Nitro Z-Series bass boats for high-performance fishing. And by Bass Pro Shops. Your adventure starts here.